David Drayton is an artist who lives on the side of a lake in Bridgeton, Maine, with his wife Stephanie and 8-year-old son Billy. On this fateful evening, David is busy painting when the power goes out because of a thunderstorm, forcing the family to retreat to their basement. And just as they reach the safer grounds, a tree crashes through the window and destroys a part of his house along with his paintings. The next day, David assesses the damage and is upset as his latest painting was destroyed because of the tree crash. To add to their woes, Billy shows his parents the smashed boathouse, which prompts David to talk to his neighbor Brent, with whom he has had a property line dispute. But when he sees the amount of damage Brent has incurred, he puts aside their differences and offers help by giving him a ride to the town. Before leaving, he notices an eerie mist over the lake, but doesn't think much of it. Just then, Billy, who is also riding with them, points out at a troop crossing them, and David tells them about the Project Arrowhead the military has been working on and wonders why they are in such a hurry. David, Brent, and Billy reach a very busy supermarket that is also out of power but is using generators to lengthen the life of certain perishables. David can't help but notice the police and fire brigade hurrying and officers coming into the supermarket to inspect. Suddenly, a blaring siren makes everyone stop talking, and they look outside and notice a man bleeding heavily through his nose, running towards them and shouting that something in the mist had taken his friend. He asks the doors to be shut, but a man adamant about going pushes his way out and tries to make it to his car, but the mist engulfs him and only his desperate screams are heard before everything goes silent. The people close the doors shut, and a few moments later, everything starts shaking violently like an earthquake. After it passes, the people decide to wait inside till the mist dissipates. Billy is pretty shaken, but David calms him down and leaves him with an older woman while he goes out to look for some blankets. He wanders into the back room and finds the generator's exhaust is blocked from the outside. So he returns with a group of men to check out the problem, and a young worker, Norm, volunteers to go out to check what is blocking the vent, much against David's protests. As soon as they open the door, a thick mist enters, and along with it, tentacles slither in and catch hold of Norm. The tentacles have several teeth that rip off Norm's skin as he screams in excruciating pain. David tries to help Norm by holding onto him as he's being dragged while others are too stunned to act. One of the workers turns on the generator to shut the automatic door, but it is too late for Norm, who gets dragged outside. Just as the door is about to be closed, David severs a part of the tentacle with the emergency axe. Appalled by what happened, David takes out his anger on the man who encouraged Norm to go out. He calms himself before discussing further course of action, and they decide to tell everybody. They start with Brent, but he bends things around and accuses David of talking behind his back and getting back at him for the lawsuit by humiliating him. Noticing the commotion, everybody gathers around, and David narrates what happened with them in the generator room. But some people start laughing and dismiss the veracity of what David and the others are claiming. To prove their claims, David takes the store manager and a few others to see the severed tentacle, and after they poke it, the tentacle spasms and disintegrates into liquid. The manager returns and accepts they might be in a problem more sinister than any of them could have expected. However, Brent is still not convinced and influences a few people not to believe what David and the other witnesses are saying. They refuse to help others stack the front glass door with dog food bags. Another woman named Mrs. Carmody thinks the mist is a sign of a biblical apocalypse and asks them to prepare to meet their maker. Having had enough of her religious take on the ongoing disaster, Amanda Dunphy, a schoolteacher, comes into conflict with her, and it escalates into Amanda high-fiving Mrs. Carmody's face. After de-escalating the situation, the group looks for weapons to protect themselves. Amanda hands the pistol she carries to Ollie, a former regional shooting champion and now a store manager. Suddenly, there is a commotion, and Brent is seen leading a group out of the store to seek rescue. One other man volunteers to bring back the shotgun from the car and ties himself with a rope. But things go wrong when the rope suddenly tightens. The people start pulling the rope back and are terrified to see that he's half the man he used to be, a glimpse of what awaits them in the mist. As the night falls, attracted by the lights, giant flying locust-like insects swarm onto the glass door and windows of the supermarket. Suddenly, a pterodactyl-like creature smashes into one of the windows, trying to feed on the giant insects, and in the process, breaks the glass, allowing the creatures to enter the supermarket. Chaos ensues as 2 people are killed and 1 is severely burnt because their plan to incinerate the creatures goes wrong. Surprisingly, Carmody is spared from an insect, which makes a few people believe the prophecies she narrated from the Bible were right. This encourages Carmody to evangelize even more enthusiastically and gain more followers among the group of survivors. In the night, the survivors check on the burnt man, but seeing his plight, they decide to go to the neighboring pharmacy in search of medical supplies. They also think of leaving the supermarket after bringing supplies for the injured, as they fear Carmody may build a congregation now that people have started to believe in her, and they fear it won't be long before she convinces her followers to start sacrificing people. 8 people, including David, venture out in the wee hours to the pharmacy and collect all the necessary items when one of them hears stridulation and finds the dead bodies of people hanging from the ceiling, covered in webs, and soon they are attacked by giant spiders. One of the bodies covered in webs falls off the wall and thousands of spiders come out of his body. They somehow make it out, but not before 2 of their men die because of the poisonous stings from the spiders. The failure of the expedition divides the survivors into 2 groups, and the majority of them side with Carmody, who preaches more fervently than ever about divine protection. Meanwhile, David and a few others are planning to leave, but before that, to understand the situation and what they are dealing with, David decides to talk to the 3 army men with him as he feels they might know something. But he finds 2 of them hanging in the loading room, which breaks the 3rd soldier, Jessup. He is dragged out by one of Carmody's followers and forced to reveal the truth. Between sobs and fears of being at the people's mercy, Jessup says that it was a government project to discover another dimension that accidentally opened a doorway into those creatures' habitat. Carmody acts as a fuel to the fire and turns the burning rage into vengeance, which leads her followers to beat and stab Jessup. Carmody further instigates them to sacrifice him in the name of God, and the crowd expels Jessup out of the supermarket. And not long after, he gets devoured by a giant praying mantis-like creature. The following day, David and the group decide to leave the store early in the morning. However, they are stopped by Carmody, who holds a knife, and so do her followers, who start surrounding them. She claims to be God's vessel and refuses to let them leave, blaming them for having brought chaos upon them. So she announces that a sacrifice must come from them and demands Billy. And as the crowd starts approaching Billy and Amanda, Ollie shoots and kills Carmody. Her followers back down and allow the group to leave, and the group darts towards David's car, but 3 of them get lost in the mist and 2 of them get devoured by the giant spiders. The 3rd runs back to the store and is led inside by the survivors. On his way to the car, Ollie gets devoured by a praying mantis-like creature just before he is about to get in the car. Amanda, David, Billy, and 2 older adults get in the car, and David grabs the gun that slipped out of Ollie's hand. They navigate their way back to David's house and find his home destroyed and Stephanie dead. Devastated by the loss, he drives away from the town and witnesses the extent of the damage and loss these creatures have created. They eventually come face to face with a colossal 6-legged beast, and as luck would have it, they run out of gas. Left with no way to escape, they all decide to end their lives, but they are left with only 4 bullets. So David decides to shoot Billy, Amanda, and the 2 older adults with the remaining bullets. Disgusted by what he was forced to do, he lets out screams in despair and tries to shoot himself, but with no bullets in it, he throws the gun in frustration and exits the car to be taken by the creature. Then, the mist suddenly starts dissipating, and David sees a vanguard of the U.S. Army armored column approaching him. They have finally taken charge of exterminating the creatures. He also sees a truck of survivors in the cavalry, including the woman who had left the supermarket in the beginning to get her children. David is filled with remorse upon realizing he killed his son and fellow survivors minutes before they could have been rescued. He lets out an anguished cry and falls to his knees, helpless. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.